If you're the Joe Biden campaign, there's some stuff that's working in your favor, still largely doing well in the polls, although we'll return to that a little bit later. But there's some bad signs as well, and it hasn't been lost on them that in just the past couple of weeks, he's made a number of different gaffes, we call them, even though that means so many different things. He mixed up Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May, which is sort of weird. He didn't remember when the Parkland shootings happened, got it mixed up with Sandy Hook. He had his little poor kids, white kids thing, the locations of different terror attacks. Like, not only are these sorts of weird gaffes, but some of them are almost directly like the sorts of gaffes that Donald Trump himself makes. Now, that has not stopped Donald Trump from attacking Biden mercilessly over the course of the past week, but it is noteworthy. And apparently people inside of the Biden campaign have started to notice this pattern and might be switching course as a result of it. Allies to Joe Biden have apparently been floating the idea of altering the former vice president's schedule in an effort to reduce the gaffes he's made in recent days. So when they say altering his schedule, what they mean is not having him campaign as much, because if he's out there, he's gonna talk, and if he talks, he's gonna gaffe, and that's not good for him. And so maybe we just don't campaign that much. A little bit more from inside the campaign though. The allies, growing increasingly nervous about Biden's verbal flubs, have said it's an approach that's been suggested to campaign officials on the heels of the former vice president's stumbles. And I'm sure that if you are a politically savvy, a politically sophisticated fan of Biden, I mean, you like Biden, but even you must know at this point that he's going to have to shake things up because this isn't sustainable. It's just drawing too much negative attention to him. One Biden ally who wasn't a strong enough ally to want to go by name, but said this: he needs to be a strong force on the campaign trail, but he also has to pace himself, which again, like that is a supporter of Biden who wants Biden to win. But that's not good. Like that, you need to pace. We're just in the opening salvo of this thing. This is gonna be a long campaign. And let's just put it out there. There are some candidates who are campaigning, who are hardcore, traveling around the country, doing lots of events. And then there are other candidates who are running for president, sort of, but not campaigning nearly as much. And I think it's fair to say that Joe Biden, so far, he has been more in that latter category. Now, not only is his pace of events lower than some candidates like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, but he also has been in it for less than most of the people running for president right now. He launched months after some of these other candidates, and he already needs to pace himself. That is not a good look for his campaign at this point. Now, understand Biden didn't say that. It's not a Biden campaign spokesman who said that. It's a Biden ally, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's a fan of Biden who thinks, man, he's only been in this for a few months, but already maybe this talking thing isn't the best idea. Now, the ally has said it's unclear whether the campaign would make any changes to Biden's schedule, particularly because Biden was criticized recently for not doing as many events as his Democratic rivals. Because largely what I said, people have been noticing this, that he hasn't been campaigning that much. And one ally seems to think that they're not going to change things up, says, I think you'll see the same schedule and maybe even more Joe Biden. Everyone wants to see Joe Biden being Joe Biden. If he's held back in any way, that's almost the antithesis of who he is. But is it? Yes. Now, if you don't let him be himself, that's the antithesis. But I mean, we're seeing Joe Biden. Like we said before he even launched, this is a guy who makes gaffes. This is a guy who's not a great debater. This is a guy who's not a great campaigner. Like we were sort of attacked initially for saying that because the idea is no, like he's gonna be the front runner if he runs. Look, he's not even running, and month after month he's leading these polls. But like we're old enough to remember the last few times he ran for president. Do you remember him winning any of those races? No, he didn't, and there are reasons for that. And they're coming out. And it looks like, I know it's early, maybe it's too early to say this, but the thing that Biden was lacking in those previous runs for the presidency was not advanced age. That's not the secret sauce that's gonna get him over the finish line. Now, he could well win still, that's possible. He's still winning in most of the polls, but things are looking bad, and it's not just stuff happening to him. This is from him. He can't seem to focus on what's going on. He seems to have a shaky memory of even recent political history, and that is not what we want, especially in a time of Donald Trump. Now, I will note, I'm not going in depth into any of the polls or anything like that. And largely Biden is still doing perfectly fine, better than he probably should have considering his last two debate performances. But there is one poll, I believe it's an Iowa state poll, that had Elizabeth Warren leading Biden, which I don't think that we've seen in any polls recently. And Bernie's also been gaining on him in a number of different polls. And so overall, nationally, he still seems to be doing quite well, but the national polls also don't mean anything in and of themselves. You have to win the caucuses and the primaries, and that is where he seems to be showing some new weakness. And if Bernie can capitalize that, or if Elizabeth Warren gets another night on the debate stage next to him and can clearly differentiate herself against Biden, especially with her vast knowledge of the issues and his Swiss cheese-like brain lately when it comes to these sorts of things, the best thing for Biden is that this next set of debates, if it's still 2 nights, and if Bernie and Warren are on one night and he's on the other, that might let him skate by for a couple more months. But the last thing he wants is to see more of this. And I will just say, if he does win the primary and goes on to the general election, what has been lost in that is not only an opportunity to differentiate our candidate from Trump on policy and values, the sort of obvious stuff that we've been talking about, but also like the concern over qualification and fitness for office. Now, I'm not saying that Biden isn't fit for office. I'm not saying that, like Donald Trump, his brain is mostly made of tapioca pudding, nothing like that. But it is going to be harder to make that differentiation clear on the campaign trail. And I don't want any ambiguity when it comes to beating Trump next year. It needs to be very clear what the 2 different candidates stand for and who they are as people, what they will be as the leader of our country. And with Joe Biden, increasingly, it looks like the lines are gonna be even more blurred. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.